Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the second day of our forum on forming a unitive consciousness. My name is Nicholas Vesey, and I'm the minister here at the Aspen Chapel. We've sponsored the event. Our purpose here really is to raise a banner that says that the only way we can solve our problems on a local, national, and international level is to work together, to unite and recognize that we have to move from thinking as individuals, as separate groups, as favored countries. We've got to move into a global consciousness that seeks the good of all species, all humanity, and generally the planet. Now, here with me today as hosts, we have Sherry Mitchell, Susan Aposhyan, and Heather Vesey. And yesterday, those of you who missed it, we heard from Marianne Williamson, Matthew Fox, Cyprian Consiglio, and Mindahi Bastadi. I'd particularly like to thank our sponsors, the Trumians family, the Hicks-Kinney family, Gina Murdoch, Don Davidson, Sandy Simpson, the Open Mind Project, and all of you who made a donation to make this happen. We're so grateful for those donations, and all of you that showed up and that are showing up online. It just makes such a difference to have people around. We're going to begin today with Susan Aposhyan. Susan, I'm going to give you the floor.
Good morning, everyone. Here in our beautiful Aspen Chapel, and also all of you around the world online. How many people do we have this morning? 300 are with us right now, but we have 600, I think, enrolled altogether. So people are coming and going and listening to recordings. So we heard a lot of very powerful ideas and images and stories and teachings yesterday. I felt so inundated with all of it. And today is going to be more about how do we integrate it all? What do we do? How do we find our way forward into our lives? As a lifelong meditator, I've been meditating for over 50 years now. I didn't start out meditating because I thought it would help us save our world. I didn't think about forming a unitive consciousness. I did think about surviving the chaos of my internal experience. Even as a young person, I was aware that there was a lot of chaos going inside of me. And I wasn't particularly more chaotic than everybody else, right? We all have a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, a lot of conflicting emotions, a lot of primitive drives. We are animals. I try to convince my grandkids of this, and they're like, no, we're humans. I said, yes, we're human animals. We are part of the family of animals. They don't believe me. I say, look, this is my job. I travel around the world teaching people about this. They don't care. And at the same time, as we were so inspired to feel yesterday, we span into the divine. We are primitive, earthbound, survival-oriented creatures that are also blessed with divinity. our hearts open. We love deeply and passionately. We want to help each other. We want to make this world a better place. We want to live together in the complexity of this extraordinarily beautiful world. What planet has snow and trees and waves and oceans and octopuses, which is the correct plural of octopus, by the way, and scorpions? We don't know of any planet with this creativity and beauty and diversity. We learned yesterday that oneness is not sameness. And if we look at our planet, we see the complexity, the difference, that we can have bacteria and elephants, and they're both essential to this living planet. So how do we as individuals discover what kind of animal we are and what our place in this world is? There's only one way to do that, which is to go within. Some of us need to go out into action first, and then it bounces us back into ourselves, right? And some of us need to start from a very quiet, deep place. Some of us live in cities and need that intensity. Some of us need to be in the forest, in the quiet, in the ocean, in the quiet. So whatever your rhythm is, whatever kind of animal you are, something has turned you back inside, looking inward, or you wouldn't be here today, right? Something outside or inside says, come back, go deeper within yourself. So let's start with that right now. Find a good posture like we did yesterday. If you weren't with us yesterday, uncross your legs if you're comfortable with that. Find the root of your trunk, your pelvic floor. Rock your pelvis back and forth a little bit. Find the middle. Find your connection into the earth. The center of you connects down to the center of the planet. Each of us, in Australia it works that way, and in Aspen it works that way. We all go straight down to the center of the planet. The very center we find solid metal. Around that solid metal we find molten lava churning. Concentric circle of molten lava. Reach down into that. Draw it up into you like you are a living volcano, which you are. Draw it up through the core of your body. Spew it out your head, the top of your head. Spew it out up into the stars so the fire of you and the fire of the earth joins together with the fire of the stars. Feel at that level of the earth and the stars. We are all connected. We are all one. We are not all the same. How are we going to work this out? breathing into the core flow of heaven and earth, moving in and out through your body, being blessed from the heavens, the stars, the whole universe, this wisdom of the entire universe that has somehow created this planet and us within it. Sherry told us yesterday about her grandkids messing up their room. We have messed up our room, and we've messed it up for everybody. How are we going to clean this up, people? How are we going to come together and act in unison and harmony? We don't know. It's a mystery. We cannot conceive of it. When I was a young person, I thought we learned from Vietnam. I thought we learned from Watergate. I thought we were all learning together. We were going to do this right. I now see that that wasn't the case. None of the logical solutions, all my work at recycling and being respectful of our planet, it's a drop in the bucket. It's going to be a magical blessing that comes from whence we know not, from where we know not. That turns this thing around. All we can do is show up, learn about this body, this person you're inhabiting, you're temporarily impersonating. And be kind to the people around us. Be kind to the creatures around us. Be kind to the rocks and minerals around us. Be respectful and kind to ourselves and each other. I want to join together in a circle. So let's make a circle around the chairs. So for those of you online, we're holding you with us in this circle. So feeling whatever blend of connection and aloneness that you feel. Breathing into that. And remembering it. Part of our work today is to go inward and discover ourselves, and then from that place, go outward and discover what's ours to do. Each of us have a different path. There's no clear path here. We don't know. Oh, after you leave this conference, you'll start writing postcards to your senators about X, Y, and Z, or doing this particular meditation, or composting more. I mean, of course, if those are what you're called to, do all of those things. But we don't know how we're going to get from here to a unitive consciousness that can save the planet, save our species, and save the other species that we are in the process of eliminating. We don't know. Right now, go into your heart. Breathe into your heart and embrace that feeling of nameless, wordless sentiment in your heart. Whatever it is, let it fill you and let it go beyond your body. As we know from science, that the electromagnetic field of the heart goes beyond the body. Each of our fields mingles with the fields of those around us, not just the humans, but the earth's field, pulsating. This is science, not just making this shit up. Breathe into it. Let go into it. All the creatures have a living field that goes beyond their bodies. And all our fields mingle. And we can't distinguish at a certain level. The Earth's magnetic field goes far beyond the atmosphere into space, and it protects us from the sun. It filters the heat and light coming from the sun. The light, I guess, which we experience as heat. Feel now, you are more than this body. Your electromagnetic field is bigger than your skin. The Earth's field is bigger than its body. All the fields join together. May we find a way through the eye of this needle, the tunnel of this wave, this avalanche, this volcanic explosion that we've created. May we find a way, or discover a way, or be surprised at the way that unfolds. We're here to serve. We're here to remember and be kind. Thank you. So Dan is going to play some music with us. Yes, please. Let's all honor that moment. Dan's going to play some music for us now. And remember yesterday, you can sit, you can stand, you can move, you can dance, you can shift around the room. Listen with your whole being. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I was thinking about that. Right now, we're close to each other, just a few feet away from each other. And one thing that we're sharing, even when we're close like this, is the light between us. And as we go about our day, we'll be far away from each other here. We'll be around other people, but we'll still be in that same light, even though I'm not close to you, or you're not close to your neighbor. And it's one thing that connects us. It's like we're living in this fishbowl with this light between us that we don't recognize. And without the one sun that we all share, there wouldn't be any light. So. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. It's all right. So little darling, it's been a long and lonely winter. That's right. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, and here comes the sun, and it's all right. So little darling, I see the smiles return on faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, and here comes the sun. I said, it's all right. Sun, 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 here it comes. Sun, 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 here it comes. So little darling, I see the ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. So here comes the sun, and here comes the sun. I said that it's all right. It's all right.
Thank you, Dan. We're going to be hearing later on from Andrew Harvey and Cynthia Bourgeault, but I'm delighted to be able to introduce Tim Shriver from Washington, D.C. Tim leads the Special Olympics International Board of Directors, and together with 6 million Special Olympic athletes in more than 200 countries promotes health, education, and a more unified world through the joy of sport. Tim also founded the Dignity Index, designed to reduce divisions in the world. Tim, I am very delighted to welcome you to the Aspen Forum. Tim Shriver, everyone.
Can you guys hear me? Yes. All right. Thank you, Nicholas. And geez, I just was hoping Dan would continue to play George Harrison for the next half hour. It would have been a beautiful treat. And thanks for the opening silence and connection. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm coming to you from the basement of the Church of St. Martin here in Washington, D.C. It's kind of interesting. The church was named originally 100 years ago after Martin of Tours, the French saint, and very icon in the early church of the charitable instincts that the church came to manifest. But now in the church, there's also a statue of St. Martin de Porres, the Peruvian saint, recently named saint. And so in a way, it's a kind of an eclectic place. And there's also, it's a church basement like any other. So forgive background noise if you hear it. I'm in the midst of the rough and tumble of life, and that's where I like to be, and I hope you don't mind sharing it with me. I'm going to share slides today. I know not everyone has done this, but I'm going to do this in part because I'm really hoping to get quite practical with us. You'll all remember the story, or many of you, of the origins of the centering prayer movement, the contemplative movement, at least as we know it today, more publicly, that the monks of Spencer Abbey in Spencer, Massachusetts, St. Joseph's Abbey, were being asked all the time how to engage with Buddhist and Eastern traditions. And they thought to themselves, wait a second, we have things in the Western tradition, in the monastic tradition. Could we make the contemplative life available to average people? And that gave birth to some of the flourishing in the Christian tradition of contemplative practice and meditation and centering prayer. My question is going to be a little bit of a correlate. Can we make the gifts or the skills involved in unitive consciousness available for problem solving in our culture? So not just can we learn these traditions that come to us for over thousands of years, but can we deploy them in a new way? And my icon for this is Dr. King. And I want to invite you right at the beginning, if you can, to just focus on the first two sentences. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And I'd like to ask everyone online and in person to bring to mind an example of when love drove out hate in your life. Might have been this morning, might have been when you were a child, it might have been something you saw or witnessed in a more public environment, it might have been something very intimate. But I'd like you to bring to mind an example, because I'd like you to engage this example. We quote these words often, but how often do we actually think that's achievable? Actually, love can drive out hate. I asked this question just a couple of weeks ago to a group of teachers, and at the end of a short moment of reflection, one of the teachers in the audience, about 100 teachers, raised his hand and said, I'd like to share mine. He said, where I live, it's a tough neighborhood, and you got to be on your guard all the time. And I was walking down the street the other day, we recounted, and I saw this guy coming toward me, and I knew he meant trouble. And he repeated, where I live, trouble is serious. And I saw him come across the street towards me. And he said, I took a deep breath. And as he got closer to me, I said to him, you're blessed, brother. And the guy looked me in the eye. And he said, you be blessed too. And he walked by me. And the teacher said, I just wanted to share that. And I love it because of the skillful means practiced in real time in the face of danger and risk to transform that danger and risk, not with protection, force, anger, hostility, or contempt, but with a moment in which he drew inward and extended a blessing. I hope you have another example, or at least an example in your own life that might be similar. Let's get practical here. This is not the norm. We have a new issue in our country, in my view, and in many countries, I'm sorry to say. We have come to conclude that the best way to drive out hatred is by using hatred and contempt. Arthur Brooks calls it a cultural addiction. We have a contempt problem. We no longer shy away from or shun or are fearful or embarrassed by the use of contempt. We lionize it, we praise it, we follow it, we're riveted by it. I mean, this past week, we had a beautiful ongoing drama of contemptuous dehumanization from two of the world's most powerful leaders. And people cheered their own side or the other side, who was getting the better of it. So I want to invite us to recognize that in this moment, I call this a new issue. That if we're going to think about the power of a unitive consciousness or non-dual consciousness, we have to think about it in the context of a culture, a superstructure that is rewarding its opposite. And contempt is not simply names or words. The Gottmans have pointed out, and maybe some of you can resonate with this, in interpersonal relationships, not just in culture, we quickly opt for contempt a lot of the time. It damages our marriages, our friendships, our relationships with our children, our friends, our fellow employees. When contempt begins to overwhelm your relationship, you forget all the positives. You become in an us versus them world. It's poison. So we're living in a superstructure that normalizes a toxic poison. I'm going to skip over this because I think the main point I want to make today is that the problem frames its own solution. in the problem, and all the great spiritual masters, I think, have noticed this, in the statement of the problem, in the framing of the problem, we maybe have called it sin or division historically. In the framing of the problem, we see its alternative. And I'm going to use the language of dignity, because the question I'm going to be asking us to think about today is there a skillful means by which treating people as though they have original goodness and a universally shared dignity, which is Father Rohr's term for this, is the skillful means of treating people as if they have goodness and a universally shared dignity? Is it possible in practical terms? Not just is it possible to think about it or to teach about it, but can we move from ideas to what I consider to be the new superpower, which is skills? So our small group built this tool about 2 years ago. And it's a little bit complicated, but in a way it's quite simple. This is called the Dignity Index. It's a scoring tool for contempt and dignity. And if you look on the upper left side, it only focuses on one variable: how you treat another person when you disagree with them. How you respond when you're angry or hurt, offended, crossed, whatever the word is. How do you respond to the other person? That's the only thing we measure here. This is a measure, by the way, it's objective, I think. We've tested this quite a lot with social science tools. We found it to be valid. These numbers hold up from 4 down. 4 is like, we're just better than those people. They don't really fit in with our group. Like, they don't, we know who they are, but if they came to the Aspen Chapel or if they came to my church, they're not really ours. They're not our kind of people. I hope you can still hear me. As you go down the scale, 3, it gets a little more contemptuous. We're good. They're not. 2, they're evil. They're disgusting. They're trying to ruin things. We're in a fight for survival, us or them, not us versus them. And 1, they don't deserve to live. That's the language of genocide or war. 5 and up is increasing levels of dignity. 5 is just kind of like equal time. When I disagree with someone, I like to give them a chance to speak their truth too. 6, you start to explore a little more deeply. I'd like to probe why we disagree. Maybe there's common ground. When you get to 7, it shifts a little bit, in some ways dramatically, because a 7 isn't just looking for common ground. A 7 is looking for the root of disagreement. Where's this pain coming from? Maybe I might not get it right. And an 8 would be a person who is able to treat people with dignity no matter what. So that's a crash course in the Dignity Index. Try to keep in mind one question I want to ask you. When you talk about people of the other political party, whichever one that is, doesn't matter. This is not a judgment about which party is better. This is just a judgment about how you treat the other party. When you talk about the other party tonight, when you sit down with your friends or family members or whoever you're with, if you're together with others or on the phone, how do you characterize the other party? Now, I'll tell you, because we don't have the chance for interactivity here, I'll tell you that most people, if they're honest, usually answer about a 3 and sometimes a 2. Those people, they're bad. I mean, I don't know what's wrong with those people. They've been overtaken by evil. I think they'd be, that party, that's how most of us talk. Not everyone. I'm not saying you, I'm just saying the average is in that range. And keep in mind, when I use 2 language, they're trying to destroy the country. Some people will hear 1. I better do something about it. I better get them. And so the burgeoning of the contempt industrial complex, not surprisingly, produces deeper divisions amongst our relationships, greater risk of violence, and a stopping, a freezing of problem-solving capacity. Ironically, the more contempt we use, the more strong the enemy we make for our cause. Ironically, what feels good, revenge, actually makes progress almost impossible. Ironically, the more we get them, the less likely we are to feel safe ourselves. So the index is trying to awaken us. We've seen, so I'll show you a couple of quick examples here. Here's Simone Biles. I think it's all about sportsmanship. She says, we don't care whether we win. We're always going to keep a good face and support our fellow competitors. This is Simone Biles after the Olympics. So we can teach people, schools, politicians, companies, how to score. And after a little bit of instruction, most people can score that, and they find out it's a 6. That's pretty good. We actually show a lot of respect for people, even when we're competing. And then there's stuff on social media. Taylor Swift is a psycho. She's the cancer of the music industry. After a little bit of training, you can take a look at that and go, hey, I think that's a 3. People are much less interested in scoring other people than they are in actually recognizing how they score. We call it the mirror effect, almost like mirror neurons, but the mirror effect. We think we're going to use this index to judge, we're going to get them. We're going to show that Trump is this, or Biden is that, or this person, or Musk is this, or whoever, or Bruce Springsteen is that. I'm going to prove that how bad they are. But what we actually find is the index reveals us to ourselves. It's a little bit uncomfortable because our contempt hides, as we've known, as Jesus taught 2,000 years ago, contempt operates in disguise. It'll look like self-righteousness. Those Pharisees, they think they're doing the right thing, but they're treating people with contempt. Contempt operates in disguise. You speak about the other party as horrible and evil, not because you think you're contemptuous, but because you think they are. So contempt is hard to see when we use it. But once you see it, it's hard to use it. So this mirror effect brings, so the question for the unitive consciousness moment that we're in right now in this discussion is, and we get asked this quite a lot, is it possible? Like each of us is born with inherent worth. So what do you want? You want me to treat that guy with dignity? You want me to treat Trump or Biden? After all they've done, after horrible things they've done, he's done or she's done, whoever, you want me to treat them with dignity? So the question becomes, can unitive consciousness, can non-duality actually be deployed in the moment? And I'm going to offer just a few short texts here. Is there a skillful means for this specific problem, for how love transforms hate? Just one problem. It's a big one, though, because latent within this question is how we approach the idea of solving every problem. Is there a skillful means by which we can treat with dignity those from whom we are divided? Still hold them accountable, still work for justice, but treat people with dignity nonetheless. So I'm going to give you 3 quick examples of how our traditions and our teachers show us, I think, a path to the deployment of a unitive consciousness in real time. Here's the cloud of unknowing describing some 800 years ago or so, the practice of, I would almost call it, of giving up control. And this is a common text, many of us have studied it. Lift up your heart to the Lord with a gentleness, with a quality, a stirring of love, not for any outcome, not for gifts, but just for his own sake. And then this beautiful section in the bottom, feel nothing except a naked intent toward God. A naked, like a literally denuding of all of your intent. So the first gift I would suggest that unitive consciousness can bring to us is the capacity to draw us into our naked intent to love. This is the practice of centering prayer, meditation, contemplation in many different traditions. But I think it's essential to solving the problem of what we do in moments of conflict. A second quality, here's again Father Rohr, speaking on the practice of what faith can do for us in these moments. The unitive way, he writes, is utterly mysterious and still rather scary and threatening. Why is it scary and threatening? No control. We have to trust mystery. We have to have ambiguity. That man describing that scene in his community didn't know what was going to happen. He had no assurance. Pulling a gun or a weapon might have been a much safer path. But he drew within and he decided a blessing. He had to trust that the ambiguity, the suffering, the mystery of the moment could do what Father Richard says here at the end. This is the only way. Faith is the process of getting to love, but the willingness and hope, the willingness to live without resolution. Having faith doesn't have to do with being perfect. It has to do with staying in relationship. Our practice, our shifting of consciousness, I suggest, when healed with or purged by faith, by an ambiguity, by a tolerance for suffering, makes it possible for us to learn to see with new eyes. And finally, let me just mention a little bit about forgiveness. James Allison has written The Resurrection, the story that so many of us have in our at least religious past, if not our religious presence, is the story of the resurrection. James Allison says this is the story, is forgiveness. But Felicia Morell takes us a little bit further into this. In liminal space, she writes, the space of sitting with our truths, the space of mystery, hear the same language, the unknown, where we get to let go of our injured expectations. What? To be seen, to be known, to be welcomed, to be approved, to be validated, to be vindicated, to be shown that we were right, they were wrong. That hunger we each of us has. We acknowledge the feelings and the power and the depth of all of those feelings. Let them through, let them roll through us. But instead of projecting outward, she writes, we sit and we release. And on the threshold between what was and what will be, the past and the future, we release. And in that space of release, that unburdening, she writes in this last paragraph, I discover a formlessness that blurs the intersection of diversity and unity, and I hear till all are one, not just as a cry, but as a realization. Simple gifts, a naked intent, a tolerance for ambiguity, a willingness to see in the present that we are all already one. These are pieces of what I would call a unitive consciousness. Very important as skills to be deployed so that we can learn a way of knowing that is not, as Cynthia, and I'm so honored to be even on a panel that includes in any way Cynthia Bourgeault, one of the most important teachers of my life, a way of knowing not accessible to the mind. She asks us over and over again, can we rewire, reprogram the organ of perception, not to see with our eyes, our physical eyes, our brains, our splitting brain. He's right, she's wrong. She's right, he's wrong. But to achieve a stabilized, non-dual perception that would enable us to oppose hatred without becoming what we oppose. So we treat each other with dignity no matter what. The Prophet Muhammad says, my Lord, allow us to see things as they are in you. My experience, Nicholas mentioned it briefly, I'm going to just skip here. My experience, 30 years in the Special Olympics movement. This is a photograph of Ajara Silla, a Special Olympics athlete. If there's only one message of the Special Olympics movement all over the world, it's that when we treat people with dignity, miracles happen. Here Jara stands on the 7th place finish box. But have you seen a picture of a human being more free? Do you know of a picture of a human being more unburdened from the need to know what other people think? Does she look like a 7th? I mean, the number disappears. She's run her race. She's given her best. She's kept the faith, if I can allude to St. Paul. And she's finished her race. I think we're at a moment, the importance of this gathering suggests, at least to me, we're at a moment when the deployment, the skillful use of unitive consciousness is essential for the transformation of injustice and oppression, but it will not be done with the means which we have typically deployed. It will not be done with hatred. It will not be done with violence. It will not be done with contempt. We will transform injustice and oppression when we finally decide to recognize that hate cannot drive out hatred. Only love can do that. So I will yield the floor now to the incomparable Heather and her capacity to bring someone who's done this as well as anybody in the last 100 years, I suggest, Etty Hellison. So over to you, Heather. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Tim, so much. And I'm so tickled at how this is just like the perfect on-ramp into what I want to talk about with Etty. But thank you, Tim. That's just so typically generous. I love the way that you see beauty and you see people really in the same way that Etty saw people. Etty, for me, is the perfect example of what Tim has just been talking about. For the last 20 or so years, Etty Hellison, both her life and her death, have been part of my inner landscape, my inner atmosphere, much like all the other people who reside within me, who I love deeply, and whose voices and wisdom help to shape who I'm becoming. And so in the context of what we're engaging with this weekend and what Tim has just shared, I'm just going to share with you a few thoughts about what Etty's life brought her to, in particular in the last couple of years leading to her death in Auschwitz when she was 29, to highlight what she somehow managed to access within herself in the specificity of her life, and just for us to see what that invites us to. If we're interested in shifting our consciousness, living out of a new consciousness, then let's really take in Etty's experience of how that can come about. I touched on this yesterday, but we're all aware of certain individuals, and Tim mentioned a bunch of them just now, in our collective awareness. People who've been fairly extraordinary in their human capacity and ability to bring to bear something of a different order. I mean, Tim mentioned them, Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, spiritual masters like Thomas Keating, who lived up the road here. So many mystics and saints throughout the ages. But also, throughout the ages, there have been countless people who've lived into and out from a different consciousness. People whose names we'll never know, but who have shaped the course of history and evolution in ways that we don't understand. Etty Hellison, I think, is just one example of someone who did this, and who, with her one fairly ordinary life, was able to live into and out from this deeper kind of love and wholeness. We know about her mainly thanks to her diaries that were eventually published in the 1980s. And so it's through her personal account of what was happening in and around her in the Netherlands in the early 1940s that we can glean some really important insights, like into practical ways of how we might all live into this something qualitatively different. So in the early 1940s, Etty was in her late 20s. She came from a fairly dysfunctional family. In her words, it was a mix of barbarism and culture. In some ways, her family was brilliant, and yet she lived in an inner world of chaos and disequilibrium. As the war gathered momentum, though, and as circumstances closed in on her, something within her wanted to meet them and show up. And crucially, with the help of an important mentor and friend who'd been a student of Carl Jung, she began to get to work in her inner workshop, as she put it. She was determined and relentless, really, in her pursuit to be a functional, loving, generative, fully human, her best self. It's as if something in her had reached a tipping point, a kind of holy discontent, a readiness, a yearning for more. And she was on her way, starting to live into that part of her that she knew would never die, the utterly indestructible part of her. A hint of eternity steals through my smallest daily activities and perceptions, she wrote. So she started with herself, with that naked intent. She was willing to look inward and to root out all the rottenness in there, as she put it. She was willing to face herself honestly and fully. It took courage, as it does for all of us, but she was up for it. She continued to give herself to beauty, to be nourished and sustained by it. There was no place for stupid guilt. She cultivated eyes to see beauty everywhere. She wrote at one point, "Even if I should be locked up in a narrow cell and a cloud should drift past my small barred window, then I shall bring you that cloud, O God, while there is still the strength in me to do so." I think what Etty prized above everything else was a newfound relationship with what she called the deepest part of her, which she said, for convenience sake, let's call God. She said, "What I do is hearken myself to others, to the world. I listen very intently with my whole being and try to fathom the meaning of things. That which is deepest and best in me. It's really God who hearkens in me, the most essential and deepest in me, hearkening onto the most essential and deepest in the other, God to God." Hearkening, I love that word. And the other beautiful word she used was reposing. I repose in myself, a kind of deep, deep rest. As if I were lying in your arms, O God, so protected and sheltered and so steeped in eternity. So in hearkening and reposing, she made a dwelling place in herself, a kind of sanctuary that she could live inside of wherever she was, come what may, where she would find strength and that inner aliveness that she was set on cultivating. And it was within that inner sanctuary, or what she sometimes called an inner convent cell, that she found all the beauty and strength that would sustain her to and beyond her death. It was in that dwelling place where she could provide a shelter for unending sorrow, and where she could entrust herself to a coherence with a capital C that holds everything together, all the beauty and the terror. Another way in which she cultivated this inner relationship was through the gesture of kneeling. A desire, this is what she said, a desire to kneel down sometimes pulses through my body. Or rather, it's as if my body had been meant and made for the act of kneeling. Sometimes in moments of deep gratitude, kneeling down becomes an overwhelming urge, heart deeply bowed, hands before my face. So she paid attention to that urge to kneel. Etty took seriously the invitations and instructions of various spiritual teachers and sages, both within her own Jewish tradition and from further afield. She was deeply drawn to the Bible and to Jesus' instructions in the Sermon on the Mount, the simple yet difficult task of love your enemies. She took it seriously, and she immersed herself in poetry and art. And just as Tim was talking about, she chose to love and she refused to hate. And as she lived into that sincere intention, and as she was willing to surrender to a deeper, wider, more spacious, and all-encompassing love, as she nurtured this inner disposition and way of engaging with people and the world, so she grew into a profoundly loving and generative person. She found her balance and her unique blend of contemplation and action. And she cultivated what she called her inner dialogue with God, this inner dwelling place. And it translated into a truly generative form of action, where she was sustained by a new kind of vitality. So instead of going into hiding and thereby giving into fear in a way, she chose to be in the midst of where the suffering was. Rather than succumbing to illusion or clutching to false hopes, she wanted to fully face reality. She radically accepted her inevitable death, and a horrible death. She gave herself to stripping down, even of words eventually, and words were her favorite thing. She embraced a radical simplicity and purity of heart. And as she did this, she lost all interest in protecting her one special life. But it was rather that it was in the Westerbork transit camp, where she worked for the Jewish Council. It's right there that she lived and moved amongst the thousands of people who were being put onto trains to concentration camps. It was there, in her words, surrounded in the camp by so many bundles of human misery, desperate and unable to face life. It was right there that she was able to access a deep down compassion, strength, and agency, even as she struggled with her own ill health and vulnerability. But it was right there in those horrendous circumstances that she lived into the full stature of her being. How did she do all this? Like, it sounds superhuman. She continued to be a mess. She was not well, and she didn't pretend otherwise. She was a glorious mix of vulnerability and strength, forever telling herself off and beating herself up. But she simply set her heart on love and was honest and accepting about her human experiences. In the end, when it was her turn to be put on a train to Auschwitz, we know that there was a song in her heart. A postcard was found that she had tossed out of the train, saying, "We left the camp singing." We don't know what her actual death looked like. Thank you, friends. We don't know what her actual death looked like, but we can only imagine. But one thing I feel pretty certain of, that she would have met her death in the same way that she met her life. If not actually physically possible, I have a deep hunch that she would have died with an inner gesture of profound surrender and trust. The image of her I have is with her arms being around whoever was next to her. Isn't this fun? Oh, goodness. Lost my spot. Thanks. Of whoever was next to her. And I think of the gesture of kneeling that she'd cultivated all the last 2 to 3 years. Inner kneeling, trusting and surrendering. This is the thing, surrendering not to death, but to a love with a massive L that encompasses death. Death that contains all of history and all evolution. A love that death cannot remotely destroy. Etty lived and died inside of a wide, high, generous, loving consciousness. She took love all the way. And in so doing, she was met. She received divine assistance. And I'm reminded of James Finley saying that we're not necessarily protected from horrible things that happen to us, but we can be inexplicably sustained in all things. And I think this was Etty's experience. She transformed into a person who was willing to love the very people who were causing the unending suffering to her. She chose to see their humanity and their plight, their suffering. She was gradually able to absolutely face reality, and in radically accepting her own inevitable death, she was able to grow into this new and beautiful freedom. She was able to see with humility that her life was one amongst billions. As she said in one point in her diary, I don't know why. I'm so calm. It's sometimes as if I was standing on the parapets of the palace of history, looking down over far distant lands. This bit of history we are experiencing right now is something I know I can stand up to. I know what is happening, and yet my head is clear. I can once more bear and stand up to this piece of history that is ours. For once you have begun to walk with God, you need only keep on walking with him, and all of life becomes one marvelous stroll. So she broke down the divisions and barriers within herself so that she could rise up to this unitive way of loving and being in the world. So Etty, just like millions of others throughout history who we know nothing about, shows us what's possible. Deep in her heart was an intention that her life and death might mean something for future generations. And so I feel this so strongly that her life and love and example live on. Most of all, her life simply shows up in how we can do the same and must do the same. Be willing to cultivate all that we've been talking about this weekend. Hands open love, utter trust, and see where life and death too take us. We're all holding our post for a time, and before too long, all that we're talking about here will be passed on to future generations. But our individual and collective efforts matter, and together we have the agency to shape and to be part of the evolution of consciousness. So I'm on my last paragraph. Am I running out of time? So let's reach out, really, let's just reach out with the very best in us and live into the divine manifestations that we all are. Let's listen deeply, like after this weekend as we go back into our lives, and support each other deeply, and choose to see the divine image in each other, see the beauty in each other, in every single human, no exceptions. It's so true that how you see anyone is how you see everyone. So let's decide that we're going to love and not hate. Not speak badly about people, not join in with the noise, but quietly, and not so quietly maybe, live into and out from wholeness. And as Shane Claiborne said in the webinar the other week, to dare to actually live what Jesus and other spiritual masters have taught down the ages, to do it fully, not half-heartedly, and together bring to bear a different way of being, a different and wonderful kind of beauty in the specificity of our individual lives and circumstances, something that's utterly new, what we might call heaven on earth. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks.
two, I think. Yeah. So good. Fantastic. Fantastic. Wow, follow that. So we're going to hear from Andrew Harvey in a moment, and then from Cynthia Bourgeault. But first, we're going to hear a song from Dan Sheridan.
It's a love song, talking about loving the people we know, our friends and our family, and it's pretty easy. And loving our enemies might be extremely difficult, but maybe start by loving the people that we just don't know. And I think it's a profound act of love to simply listen. It's not easy. Well, you can play the game and act out the part. You know it wasn't written for you. Tell me, how can you stand there with your broken heart, ashamed of playing a fool? One thing can lead to another. It doesn't take any sacrifice. So father and mother, sister and brother, if it feels right, don't think twice. Shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out better if you only will. Well, you can run, but you cannot hide. This is widely known. So what you plan to do with your foolish pride when you're all by yourself alone? Won't you tell somebody the way that you feel? You can feel it beginning to ease. And I think it's true what they say about a squeaky wheel always getting the grease. It's better to shower the people you love with love. Show them the way that you feel. Things are gonna work out better if you only will. What I'd like to do to you is shower the people you love with love. Show them the way you feel. Things are gonna work out better if you only will. Every life, a little rain must fall. It's just like falling rain. Make it rain. Make it rain. Love, love, love is sunshine. Oh, so everybody. Everybody, everybody, everybody. So shower the people you love with love. Shower the people you love with love.
Dan Sheridan there, Aspen's Troubadour, he's known, that's his title. So Andrew Harvey is the founder and director of the Institute of Sacred Activism, an international organization focused on inviting concerned people to take up the challenge of our contemporary global crisis by becoming inspired, effective, and practical agents of institutional and systematic change in order to create peace and sustainability. And we're delighted to welcome from Chicago, Andrew Harvey.
Hello, everybody. How wonderful to be with you, and how wonderful that you have come together to celebrate Unitive Consciousness. It is absolutely essential at this moment, at this terrible and amazing moment, that as many of us as possible realize two things. That we are now in what the Hindus call Kali Yuga. We're in the throes of the furnace burning of Kali Yuga, and we are now in an unprecedented global dark night. We're in climate collapse. We are on the brink of potential nuclear war. And in this country, in this glorious country of America, we are now sliding into the abyss of what could be the most dangerous form of fascism humanity has ever invented. What this means, too, is that seeing that, feeling that, registering that, not denying that, not turning away from that in passivity or denial or cultivating our little private gardens, we plunge into the greatest adventure that humanity has ever been given. The adventure of incarnating, embodying unitive consciousness and acting wisely, urgently, together, on every level and in every way, to save humanity and potentially save nature from the terrible destruction that we will wreak on it if we continue in our insane hubris and pursuit of domination and power. The most important thing that I could say to you about unitive consciousness is that it means not a hill of beans without conscience. You hear everywhere on every level people prattling on, babbling on about consciousness and talking about all the wonderful experiences they've had, and that's fine. But what does all of that mean if it isn't focused by a burning, heartbroken, but joyful conscience on a radical commitment to resist peacefully but forcefully all the orgy of evil that's now taking place nakedly in front of us? So I want to begin by reading you two poems that I've just translated from the greatest evolutionary revolutionary with Jesus of the human race, a man called Kabir, who lived in the 14th century, saw what was coming because of what was going around with him, and wrote the most scalding, brilliant, conscious-honed poems you will ever find. He is the king of mystics. Here are two. And if you listen, you will hear unitive conscience and unitive consciousness married in divine tenderness and divine fury. You want truth? Pray to be brave and wild enough to die into it and be reborn as its tender, fierce, tireless servant, whatever it costs. You want truth? Dare, despite yourself, to beg the Lord to burn down your house of comfort, lies, denial, illusion, and accept gratefully all the sufferings his fires of purification must bring. You want truth? Dare to ask him for a vision of your highest self and all it could be and do and all it must do when it is installed in you. And install that vision through prayer, meditation, action, in every thought of your mind, in every movement of your heart, in all your being, your bones, your muscles, your cells, and in every intention behind all your actions. Kabir says, now we're talking. And this one, this astounding poem, which could have been written yesterday and was, because it's timeless. This is timeless truth of unitive consciousness, the real unitive consciousness, speaking nakedly to us right now to get us out of our funk, out of our paralysis, out of our passivity, and to arm us with the humble, glorious power of the Mother Father. It is because I love you and love truth that I will do anything, howl, insult, cajole, explain, enrapture, to show you the real amazing and terrible path that leads to the place where you and him are merged forever in the whole of your free, ecstatic being. It is because I love you and love truth that I have never flattered you or fed you the stale chapatis of outworn tribalist dogma. The religions have gone mad, but the sanity of truth remains forever. And it is that sanity that speaks through me and the me in you to you now. It is because I love you and love truth that I tell you, out of the fire of Kali Yuga, no one is safe until they die into life. No one is real until they live the real. No one knows anything before they are annihilated and humbled finally by the majesty of the One. No one knows anything until they know nothing of the unknowable, whose mystery will then unfold in those who remain in awe on their knees, giving everything they have to rescue all beings. Those two poems are for me the poems that authentic unitive consciousness is singing fierily to us. I want to go on by proclaiming something that many of you probably already know, but we must now know this at a visceral level. There are two kinds of mysticism. One is patriarchal and traditional. It contains great illuminations, great truths, but it is hopelessly inadequate to the situation we are facing for the very simple reason that it has not absorbed into the core of itself all of the illuminations, visions, ecstasies, and passions of the divine feminine. And what this has meant is that traditional patriarchal traditions have identified and described unitive consciousness as something that frees you from matter, frees you from the world, frees you from relationship, frees you to go off into the light and abandon your body, your sexuality, justice, the world, relationships. This has been a catastrophe for human nature, and it is especially catastrophic at a moment when everything we love of the embodied Godhead, the Mother, is now burning to death. Fortunately, there is another kind of mysticism that you see alive in the authentic Jesus, that you see alive in the prophet, peace be upon him, that you see alive in all the great evolutionary mystics of humanity, from Jesus to Moses de Leon to Jean Gebser to Father Bede Griffiths, and of course in the splendid and sublime work of Aurobindo. And if you really plunge into that kind of mysticism, which is suffused entirely by the mother force, by the mother love, by the mother wisdom, in union with Father transcendence, what you discover about unitive consciousness now and what we need are three things. And these three things are absolutely essential for us all to get one with as soon as we can, because what's needed now quite clearly is a worldwide revolution, peaceful but fervent and focused, of love in action. And every single teacher and every single seeker on every single path needs now, I believe, to align themselves with the great stream of evolutionary mysticism and the three essential teachings for our time it contains. The first essential teaching is that we cannot afford any more to divorce our hunger for consciousness from the duties and responsibilities of divine awakened conscience. Because if we do, we will continue to be spectacular narcissists bathing in our own private experiences and not realizing that those experiences are given us by the one to make us brave, wild, heroic, funny, joyful, and absolutely committed to the birth of a new world out of the ashes of the old. We will, in other words, just be playing with light at a moment when the whole of human life and the whole of nature is threatened. And when you cross over, I was told by the Christ in the vision of the resurrected Christ I had in Coimbatore in my 40s, when you cross over from a time like this, you're only going to be asked one question, not how much money you had, not how much good you did, but what the hell did you do when the world was burning? That's the first challenge of evolutionary mysticism. The second challenge will be more difficult for many of us, although it hasn't been very difficult for me. And it is to get aligned with what is called in the mystical traditions divine ferocity. The divine isn't only tender. Divine love is both tender, protective, nourishing, adoring, and also at times, when necessary, unbelievably fierce. And it is this ferocity of truth, this ferocity of the willingness to stand up to the lies that are now dominating our whole world, that will distinguish the authentic from the fake. If you look at one example in Jesus's life, you'll see exactly what I mean by divine ferocity. And this is the moment when Jesus overturns with divine anger the people, the tables that are loaded with things that people are selling in the temple. And if you really contemplate that situation, it actually has two extraordinary components. The first is that Jesus is the living flame of incarnate divine love, saying this buying and selling in the temple, this disgusting and obscene materialism when it comes to God is an abomination. And he is doing that terrible and amazing act to say this has to stop. But the other thing you realize if you go deeper is that Jesus isn't saying that or doing that to damn the people who are doing what they're doing. He's doing that as an act of divine ferocity to show them in the mirror the danger of what they are doing to their souls and to the world. He's offering the very people who he is scolding with his critique a chance to redeem themselves. We must denounce what is happening in our country, the insane laziness over the climate, the insanity of allowing the world to be brought to the brink of nuclear war. And we must denounce the actions of all the people who have given themselves over to the dark and are doing this. But we must never, ever hate them. They are children of God and they deserve our love and our forgiveness. But that does not mean, as soppy idiots in the New Age have said again and again, that we should do nothing. No, we should resist as Martin Luther King resisted, as Gandhi resisted, as Churchill resisted, but without hatred, because they too are children of God and they are playing unconsciously a great role in the potential divinization of humanity and of ourselves. The last great challenge that evolutionary mysticism and its real potent description of unitive consciousness provides us is that, look, it doesn't mean a hill of beans at this moment if you've had marvelous visions of interdependence, and if you've seen the whole world explode in light, and if you've been initiated by the Archangel Michael or Mary Magdalene or Jesus himself. If you don't put the powers and ravishing intuitions and deep new energies that are given you into sacred action. In my 50s, I produced for the world a book called The Hope, and that spawned a global movement of sacred activism, which is now growing everywhere because millions of people all over the world know now that love is a verb. Unitive consciousness is a verb activated by conscience. So, my dear friends, let us be extremely clear, focused, brave, and come together, all teachers, all lovers of God, face what we're facing, face that we must embrace this far richer, deeper, more challenging vision of unitive consciousness, and go ahead, enjoy, knowing that if we do, we will become the warrior midwives of a new reality, a new humanity, a new world. We can't just think about this. We have to do it now.
Well, really, thank you so much, Andrew Harvey. And just want to tell everybody that Andrew is coming here to Aspen in February of this year, next year. So we're going to be seeing more of Andrew here. We're going to move on now to Cynthia Bourgeault. Now, Cynthia is at the moment up in Maine on her boat. And so I actually had to record a piece from Cynthia. And the beginning bit, for the first 30 seconds, the video is not good because the internet up there is it, but just worry not, because after 30 seconds it does sort of even out and is fine. But the audio is totally fine. As many of you know, Cynthia is a modern day mystic. She has written many books. She divides her time in solitude in a seaside hermitage where she is now in Maine. She's been honored as one of the 100 most spiritual, influential people living in 2021. And as I say, I recorded this last week when Cynthia was in Maine. And so please welcome by video, Cynthia Bourgeault.
Well, hello to all of you and welcome. And I add my greetings on this very special and I think significant day in the life of one of the great religious traditions, Christianity. It is the day of Pentecost, the classic day where unitive and unity were wrapped together as everybody spoke in the same language, understood each other in a deep unity, as the Holy Spirit came fireballing down to kickstart the whole thing in high gear. What a great day to be having the second go round at our wonderful conference and gathering. I think it's a sort of spiritual think tank exploring what next. What do the times and what do our own consciences collectively and united really call us to do? So I want to come at this from another corner of things, and it's kind of been inspired by the wonderful summons that Marianne Williamson delivered to us at the last conference, where her resounding line was, pray in the morning, kick butt in the afternoon. And I think that conference was a surprise to us all. I mean, and a very, very welcome surprise. I don't know what people were expecting in the start, but I suspect they were expecting that all these so-called enlightened teachers were going to give people self-calming techniques to talk about how to rise above it. And this too will pass, and just use your mind to calm your anxiety. Wrong. Instead, what we got was from teacher after teacher, from Andrew and Matthew and Marianne and Sherry and all on it, a profound, united summons to say, no, what is going on now is a violation of conscience. It's a disfiguring of the face of the human being before God, if you can stand the God language. And to the extent that we are supposed to be made in the image and likeness of God in the Judeo-Christian tradition, it's a disfiguring of God good. So the question is not if we act, but it's how we act. Act we must. Leadership must be a part of the mix. The question that any of this can bring from the spiritual sector is a perspective on it, so that action doesn't simply become judgmental, reactive, and angry, so that it's suffused with skillful means, and in that sense reaches its target without ripping up the planet in the process. So I think that's the goal, and I think that's the goal that would be shared by almost all the people you'll be hearing and interacting with here. We want to do it. We know we have to do it. We know we have to gird up our loins. We don't know how to do it. Many of us are baby boomers. We've never known such insecurity before. So in that sense, I'd like to start by just saying that pray in the morning and kick butt in the afternoon, for all of the power of it, does too underestimate the power that is contained in prayer. And I'm not going to go back to the old religious rap here, but I think that prayer is one of our most powerful ways of kicking butt, if we know how to use it rightly and apply it strategically. That one of the reasons that the whole kind of idea of contemplation versus action has gained traction is because of these desperately paternalistic and outmoded ideas of God that come from the Judeo-Christian tradition, where we all sort of picture this little old man up in the sky who's a judge with a few good days. And so we whine and we plead, and a lot of grown-ups say, to hell with that. But I think that this idea that contemplation or prayer is a private activity, usually used for self-replenishment, for self-restoration, for a restoring of a confidence in the face of fright or in the face of hardship, it's partway in the door, but it can get all the way in the door when you start from the assumption that prayer has to connect to something. And what it connects to, for me, is the wonderful map of the ray of creation. It occurs in many, many traditions, but my own most influenced model is from Gurdjieff, where he devised, he took the old great chain of being model that Ken Wilber and so many people have talked about, and turned it into many, many realms reciprocally feeding each other, each one giving, each one receiving, each one on the chain operating under different conditions and in higher and higher degrees of intensity, spiritual coherence, purposiveness, and agency. And so here we are, human beings down on the chain, and toward the bottom of it, not quite at the bottom, in a world that's dense and coarse and linear and mechanical, but just beyond us, and the next one really in association with us is the imaginal realm, World 24 under half as many laws and capable of all sorts of wonderful, neat things at a higher, more intense electromagnetic level than we can even imagine down here in our conceptually bound Earth. So prayer is really the lifeblood and the lifeline and communications network with this realm from which we give, receive, and deploy. And so that's the nub of what I've been teaching in my group, which is imaginal activism, which is really engaging this this thing. When prayer operates at high speed within the spirit of imaginal activism, it comes under new and higher laws. We gain, first of all, instant bilocation. I mean, you know about quantum entanglement, something that's going on in one part of the cosmos is going on in another. So, and you gain not linear timing, first this, then after this, post hoc, after propter hoc, but instant, simultaneous, synchronous connection, which allows action to be placed anywhere at any time and reach out and connect with everything else at that same level without having to go through all these organization and motivations and committees. It's just the power of pure intention instantly communicated around a web, and it's very real. The other thing that we gain the multiplication of knowing that our efforts are joined with not only with everyone else on the planet at that level in weirdly wonderful ways, but we can receive from the spiritual teachers that have gone beyond us and are no longer on this planet, all the way back to, the Buddha, Jesus, if you want, St. Francis, you name it, Etty Hellison, they're all here. And if they are in the higher realms, they are still fulfilling something of a bodhisattva function, concerned for us, knowing even better than we do how precious this planet is, how crucial it is to the cosmic equilibrium, and prepared to exchange help. So as we learn to purify the prayer, purify the motives in the ground of our beseeching, as Julian of Norwich once famously said, prayer becomes a powerful agent. It's almost like a secret lifeline of the exchange of energy at a far higher level, electromagnetic and beyond, of pure intention. So if we know how to deploy it and move beyond it, beyond just personal replenishment and private devotion, into strategic imaginal activism, this would be for me a way that we will eventually find our way to bridge the gaps through the thorny paradoxes and conundrums of this particular courageous operation we're embarking on. So in conclusion, I would like to just mention about, maybe a half dozen skills and mindsets that I've been working with around my wisdom network to help people become imaginal activists. And we've done as many as 3 in a few ceremonies at one time, but we will eventually work this up into a full course, I think. But the first is centering prayer, or any form of strong, good meditation that will allow a person to detach from their emotions, feelings, provisional reactivity. It can be centering prayer, that's mine in honor of Thomas Keating, my teacher, any other form, Vipassana meditation, whatever. And it needs to be a bedrock, because personal reactivity is, as the ancient traditions have, it blurs awareness. We get all up at emotional reactivity, agendas, ego issues, judgment, blame, and then we cannot act with the kind of clear impartiality that's forceful. So that is the bedrock. The second piece comes from G.I. Gurdjieff, which is 3-centered awareness, which is the realization that we have within us three discrete, CRETE, three separate systems of intelligence, all operating at their own speed and giving their own perspective on the world. And these are the intellectual center, our thinking brain, our emotional or feeling brain, but also our moving center, which is intelligence and movement, the ability to explore the world through sensation and movement, particularly rhythmic. So it's a wonderful energy equalizer so that we don't get stuck in our emotions. And it is also through sensation, the gateway to our subtle inner body, which already lives perfectly comfortably at that imaginal level. Eckhart Tolle was the first to pick that up years and years ago in his book, The Power of Now. And it still is not a significantly acknowledged point. So the third after that is a quality I've been speaking about quite a lot lately, which is called metis. The word comes from the Greek, and it was first called to our attention by Peter Kingsley, who actually gave us a seminar here in Aspen many years ago. Wonderful British philosopher. And Peter pointed out that this Greek word actually means shrewdness. But what it means is skillful timing. It knows how to act in a way with exactly the right force and exactly the right timing so that it strikes its goal. It's like, how do you deliver the karate chop? And I think that there's no lack of metis, at least in this group, or no lack of willingness to employ it. But there is generally a lack of skill in how to, because once again, our emotions and our judgments and our anxieties get so loud that we miss timing, just like you can never react skillfully when you're angry or when you're in a rage or when you're reactive. You're always going to hit it just slightly off center. So that's the third. The fourth is conscience, which is learning how to act and to see beyond the subtle, beyond our kind of templates of right and wrong, seeing beyond judgment, seeing beyond what we think is right and wrong, seeing with humility, but acting absolutely in straight alignment with our conscience, which is our connection. It's the eye of the heart, as far as I'm concerned. It is the rod in us that aligns with imaginal causality and even beyond. And when our conscience is clean and is listening and is motivated, it will inevitably align with right, with the higher order, with the higher coherence, without judgment, without blame, without fear, and without fear for its own well-being. It's a kind of deep sense of unity with and in the infinite. And I think the restoration of conscience is one of the crying needs of our own skill building set. The fifth is courage, which is in the old French, courage, the way of the heart. Again, courage is to follow the path of conscience without fear. It's not bravado, it's not in your face, it's not reckless. Sometimes you're scared shitless, but you will not fall out of alignment. It's that kind of courage. The courage of Jesus on the cross, who certainly didn't like it and probably was quite intimidated by the pain that he was going to suffer and the injustice. But step up the plate when you know you're not going back, when you know that you are doing what must be done. It's that which provides the interior composure to walk forward gracefully, resolutely, even in fear. And finally, compassion, which is deeper than pity and deeper than love. Compassion is ground on equality, and equality is ground on seeing that we're all one. I'm not looking down on somebody or imposing. Compassion is that we could easily be in either person's shoes. Compassion for ourselves, compassion for our planet, compassion for those we consider to be our enemies, compassion for all of us stuck in this horrible loop that was nobody's making. It's come by forces and by needs and by years and years and decades and maybe even centuries of misattention and misdirection. A course correction that may be required from points beyond ourselves. But compassion is what will allow us to go through it, keeping our hearts open and soft to one another, to our planets. And only with that softness of heart can anything that I've said in the last 25 minutes or so find a place to land. So in the spirit of compassion, courage, conscience, metis, three-centered awareness, and meditative prayer, I send you all forth with a blessing and deep gratitude. Thank you.
I listen to the wind of my soul. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I swam up on the devil's lake, but never, I never made the same mistake. No, never. I listen to my words, they fall far below. So I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I sat upon the setting sun, but never, I never wanted water once. No, never. I listen to the wind of my soul. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I swam upon the devil's lake, but never, yeah. I'll never make the same mistake. No, never. I listen to the wind of my soul. I let my music take me where my heart wants to go. I sat upon the setting sun, but never, I never wanted water once. No, never.
So on our panel, we have Susan Aposhyan. So you all know Susan. And then we have here Sam Vesey. Sam Vesey is a rising senior at Skidmore College in Upper New York State, majoring in English. She established a group for trans women. And also, she's our daughter. So this is Sam Vesey. And then we have Andrew Scott from the Open Mind Project. So welcome to Andrew. And then we have Nicholas. So let's go straight in to, maybe with the first question to you, Susan. Could you speak a little bit more about practice as a bedrock?
And so when I notice that I'm losing it in some way or another, I bring myself back to this moment, to this body, because that's the center of here for all of us. This body, this now. Finding the center of here and now. And you can do it in a gazillion different ways. You know, you can have your practices when you're driving. You know, I have a friend that wrote a book about driving meditations. You can do practices when you're washing dishes, certainly when you're relating to the people that you live and work with. Yeah. So find your practices. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Let's go to this. I'm going to put this to Nicholas. How can we use quantum physics to change the energy, for example, through prayer? Can you elaborate a little bit on that Cynthia was talking about?
I'm glad to get the simple questions. I need a slide projector now to be able to answer that question. And I think it's, the fact of the matter is that when you connect in your soul, when you connect deeply, you connect to all reality. And therefore, as Cynthia was saying, when you're connected to all reality, then anything is possible at that particular moment. And that's how it sort of fits with quantum mechanics, in that quantum mechanics leads us to the idea that the watcher is actually affecting the experiment. The watcher affects the experiment. That's the basis of quantum mechanics. And so therefore, if the watcher is affecting the experiment, then the watcher is affecting the world. And therefore, as we watch internally, we therefore affect what's going on. That's how I think it works.
Thank you. Okay, Sam, this one's for you. Andrew Harvey talked about unitive consciousness as a verb rather than a noun. And so I wondered, from your vantage point as a rising senior, as you, and representing Gen Z, as you think ahead to the future from your vantage point, and from the point of view of a trans person, perhaps, what might you say? What's your take on things?
I think I'm sitting here kind of as a representative of the future in a certain way. The one here that will be like carrying on this sort of mentality going forward, as I'm assuming the youngest person in the room. But amongst my peers and amongst like the youth, and especially transgender youth, I think unitive consciousness is only going to become more and more important. The more I talk to people, the more I think about how we are realizing we're all in this together. Politics in this country has really been, for my entire life, a decline of responsibility, a decline of adults acting like adults. And it's really worrying as a child growing up into a young adult now to see people who are supposedly running the country, supposedly leading us, acting less mature than I would. And that's terrifying. Especially as a transgender person, I have to trust to a certain extent that the government is going to continue to support my existence. People think that trans people have just come into existence, but we have been there the whole time. Throughout history, transgender men and transgender women, and those who sit outside the gender binary, have been a part of society, living amongst everyone else in ways where often someone couldn't tell, sometimes they could. We have capacities to medically transition now, which we didn't have before, which I'm very grateful for, but that doesn't mean we're in the clear. There is every capacity for people in power to wake up tomorrow and say that I don't deserve to exist. And so unitive consciousness is a genuine form of praxis for me. Because if I have a unitive consciousness with all of you, and you do with me, then I can have a degree of assurance that I am safe, which is not there if we're all individuals and we're all acting on our own. And so looking forward into the future, I hope and I pray and I am working as hard as I can to assure that we being everyone here, as well as everyone in my generation, work as hard as we can to foster that sense of unitive consciousness and unity amongst all people, to recognize that the people are the ones really in charge, and the ones really in charge are just the ones that are standing around giving orders. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much. I'm going to combine a couple of questions here for you, Andrew, and then for you, Nicholas, to wind up with this question as well. So, how do those who do not have a group that they're part of, not a collected group that they're part of, move forward on more than an individual basis? I guess conversation and seeking a path with others forward, though some would be individually. So, for those who don't feel that they're part of a group, and with that, how can we best create islands of coherence? Another question.
Thanks, that's a lot. So, the unitive consciousness idea, well, there's nobody that doesn't have a group because we all exist inherently in community. I had a Buddhist teacher I was arguing with. I like to argue. Was raised in a dualistic society, as some of the previous speakers talked about. But this idea in Buddhism, and it also exists in Christianity, that we should, love and respect our parents. And, he kind of convinced me, that there is, no matter how bad parents might be, ultimately, without our parents, we don't exist. So to kind of cultivate this place of respect and love, there is no matter how isolated and alone a person is, they're always existing in community, not just as a member of a national group, but an entire global organism, and we're not separate. So I don't know. I've also just been thinking a lot about non-dualism. I mean, unitive consciousness, it seems like unitive consciousness is the same as non-dualistic, a sort of a non-dualistic philosophical place where we realize we're not actually separate. So I don't know if that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's right. I think the verb that Cynthia was saying, the verb is, how do we work together? I mean, we all should be working together. I mean, it's ridiculous that countries are fighting each other. It's ridiculous they're not saying, how do we help China? How do we help other people? Not I'm going to be the person and get all my riches and stuff like that as a country. Look at it from the planet. Look at it from from space. It's quite obvious that we're one organism. And until we start doing that, until we start acting like we are part of the same organism, then we're always going to be fractures. But having said that, I mean, we are attempting here, if the Aspen Wisdom website is our attempt to begin this. We did the webinar out of the Aspen Wisdom website, aspenwisdom.org. We did this forum out of the Aspen Wisdom website. And I don't know quite, we're making it up as we go along, quite frankly, but I didn't know how we would develop that. Someone rated, we put articles on the website. We're quite happy to develop that website as a way of bringing people together in any way that we can. And, there are email addresses on there. Do contact me if you want to email or do something. We're really open. Literally, we are making it up as we go along. So we're really open to seeing where this might go.
Thank you. Maybe time for one more. And then we're going to a ritual with Susan. Can't wait. One more. I understand that we must use love to drive out hate. And there've been a few questions around this, around like how to deal with hate. I don't see this as my problem. In fact, it seems that the over reliance on this one idea is a holdback for me. It seems that learning to use my own will and knowing it is okay to do so is the task at hand for me. This may mean that I must step away from some relationships for a while, not in hate, but in love. It seems that a missing component in spirituality is that it's okay to impose our will, as in standing strong in love. When we go along to get along, aren't we part of the problem? Do you want to speak to that, Susan?
Absolutely. Well said. I mean, and don't we all struggle with that? We get caught in the spell of just being nice and being loving and being kind and being gentle. And we need to wake up and say, that doesn't really work for me. That's not okay. That's really not okay. Sometimes, we have to stand up and respect our conscience, as Cynthia was saying. I don't know, do you guys want to say anything?
I think that going along to get along is an interesting phrase, especially because at a certain point, loving is going against someone. Again, as a transgender person, I am like up on the chopping block in terms of what policy is going to be passed. And to love me is to actively go against others. If someone is preaching for the destruction of a group of people, participating in genocide, participating in the willful downtroddenness of groups of people, whether that be socioeconomic, ethnic, gendered, any of that, going along with that is not loving. To accept that and to appease those people is not love. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
I'd just like to add one thing. I want to talk about, well, language, and I feel like as we enter the space of trying to sort of revolutionize this destructive reality that we've been born into and end up being participants in just as members of this society, it's like we have to question everything. Because I was thinking about, them saying you're part of Generation Z, right? It's like, are we expecting a nuclear holocaust? Because Z, there's no more letters after Z. So hopefully Generation Z can, give birth to Generation A, but, ultimately there's so much embedded in language, right? I mean, even the idea that darkness is something, Martin Luther King's quote, right? Only light can drive out darkness, but why are we afraid of the dark? The womb is darkness. We all come from darkness. Darkness can mean safety, security. It doesn't, but in our society, we think it's evil. And so there's a racist element embedded in the idea that light is supposed to conquer darkness. Like, we need to really just be ready to question all of our underlying assumptions about what we've taught and the way things are. Because once we face, okay, there's some negative outcomes that are coming along with our sort of way of being, we need to be ready to sort of like, okay, let's try to revise this.
Thank you. I wish we had more time. I've got my eye on the clock because we're going to go into a closing ritual that Susan's going to lead us in. But thank you, all of you, for your comments. And I'm sorry it's not more. And now let's go to the final ritual with you, Susan.
Find a way of being that connects heaven and earth. Yeah. So we put a rock in everybody's chair that's here. And for those of you online, if you have a piece of earth, solid piece, hopefully, a rock or mineral or anything solid that you can hold in your hand, some kind of object. You got 2 rocks. Good for you. Yeah. Yeah, if you can't see anything near you that you can hold in your hand, put your hand on your heart. And at the end of the day, the online people, maybe go outside and gather something. Because what we're going to do now, where's my rock? My rock. Connect to your rock. We hope that you'll take this rock home and you'll put it somewhere that you can see it, and it will remind you of our time together. Take a moment to think, what do I want to put in my rock? What ideas, what memories, what feelings? Blessings, emotions, outrage, ferocity, anything that you want to put into your rock so that your rock serves as a reminder to yourself. Of whatever is meaningful for you in this time that we've spent together. For whatever is meaningful to you going forward. What do you want to do to become a better person in a very loving, accepting sense of the idea? We're all doing our best. We're all a bit confused. And how can we lovingly support ourselves to wake up a little further, to heal a little further, whatever is ours to heal, to forgive what we're ready to forgive, to hold on to and contemplate what we are not yet ready to forgive. Because that's useful too, right? Grappling with our frustration with ourselves, with the world, with people in our past. We grapple until we can put it down. And just feel for a moment that you could put down your rock. You could lay down your burden, as we say. Just put it down. Anything you're ready to lay down, lay it down. If you think, oh, I'm not quite ready, pick it back up again. That really didn't work for me. And so put into your rock all your fervor, all your intention, all your passion of doing whatever you can to heal yourself, to support others to heal themselves, and to support our entire crazy toddler adolescent species to grow up quick. Grow up quick. Please, may we all grow up quick. Put your prayers into the rock. Put your wishes into the rock. And feel, remember this morning, for those of you that were here, take your rock. It's kind of like making the sign of the cross. Take your rock from the sky, where all atomic particles came from, and pull it down through your core, through your pelvic floor. I'm trying to channel Andrew now. Into the center of the earth, the ferocity of incarnation. And feel the connection between this rock and all of the universe. Every particle in this rock, and your rock too. Every particle in this body, and your body too, all came from the Big Bang. We don't know where it came from before that, but we're all circulating through this universe. Every atomic particle in everything has been circulating through this universe for, is it 15 billion years since the Big Bang, plus or minus? 13.8 is the Big Bang now. They get new numbers for everything. The big breath, the great unfolding, as Thomas Berry and Brian Swim call it, the great unfolding. Let your breath go around that. And the most important thing to put into the rock is kindness towards yourself, because inevitably we are all going to leave this weekend. What do we call it? Is this a conference? Forum. We are all going to leave this forum. Leave it to a Brit, to use a Roman term. We're all going to leave this forum, and we are going to forget all of our good intentions. Not all the time, not all of them, I shouldn't say, but sometimes, right? We're going to forget. We're going to get stupid and selfish and immature. We're going to be unkind to the people around us. We're going to fuck up, some of us majorly. So when you look at your rock, when you pick up your rock in your hand, when you hold your rock against your heart or your belly, remember to be kind to yourself. Remember that we are a young, confused species, and we are doing our best. That's the crazy thing, is that even people that seem blatantly evil, on some level, they're doing their best. They're doing what they think is right. Right? Even if it's diluted from our perspective. Gotta take the rock back to my heart for this one. People are so earnest and good at the core. And our most far-flung delusions somehow come from that earnest goodness. So, I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I'm going to do this. Repeat after me. When I fuck up majorly, I want to remember my rock and pick up my rock and put it against my heart or my belly or my left eyeball or wherever I want to put it. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got some left eyeballs here in person going, so I'm lucky I realized I'm dyslexic, so I got my left. It's a miracle. And I want to remember that I am one small, confused human. And I generally do my best. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you, Heather and Nicholas. So much. So impressed. Thank you, all of our speakers and our panelists. And thank you to the non-physical world. Thank you to the whole universe, the unitive consciousness, the universal consciousness that somehow created this wildly gorgeous planet we live on, that somehow got us into a forum in Aspen or online to witness it. Thank you, everybody. And please help us get through this next rite of passage in some miraculous and personally, I hope, expeditious form. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to give some final thanks in a moment, but I thought it would be really lovely to end with a song from Dan Sheridan just to play us out, and then I will just say a couple of words of housekeeping and thanks as well. That's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to do something playful. How's that? I used to sing this like when I was 12 years old at the Catholic folk mass, which was St. Mary's Church, and we'd wheel in the cross in the gymnasium, and I sang this, and I worked with kids with special needs in college, and we'd sing it. If I sing at a bar late at night, I'd play it, and I was just thinking how unifying music is, because it just sounds good, and it's fun to sing. So wherever the road takes you today, I hope this song gives you a little joy. You can hum it to yourself, and please sing the chorus. Very easy. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountain, blowing like a breeze. Your part, country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country road. That was the best part of my day. All my memories gather round her, miner's lady, stranger to blue water. Dark and dusty, painted on the sky, a misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eyes. Country road, take me home to the place long West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home. Take it to the bridge. I hear a voice in the morning as she calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. Driving down the road, I get a feeling I should have been home yesterday. Yesterday, last time. Country road, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country road, take me home.
Hey everybody! Dan Sheridan. Thank you, Dan. What a perfect song to end. That's absolutely lovely. I'd just like to do some thank yous. I'd like to thank you for all the people of our speakers. Andrew Scott, Sam Vesey, Heather Vesey and Susan Aposhyan. Fantastic to have you with us. Thanks also to Marion Williamson, Matthew Fox, Sherry Mitchell, Mindahi Bastida, Tim Shriver, Andrew Harvey, Cynthia Bourgeault. But also I want to thank the guy who's had the twiddling the knobs up there and made all this happen, Matt Winhorse. I mean, really. You know, to make this happen has been fantastic. Hilary Stunder as well, who's been, she's away somewhere, who's been inviting all the guests to come in. Peggy as well, who's been doing all things. So Peggy and Jean and all the assistants who've helped and done all the bits and bobs and things like that. So, you know, all I would say is just, you know, take out whatever you can, do your practice. And as they always said at the end of Hill Street Blues, let's get out there and do some good. Thank you very much.